So I see a couple others just joined us. We just went ahead and opened in prayer already, and we'll get started. And I briefly asked the question. So for those that just started, whether or not we watched, anybody had a chance to watch the Tahiti presentations, I did get through 1 and 2. For those that watched, it sounds like some of you watched number 1. What do you what is your take out of what he's talking about thus far, if you've only watched number 1?
Yeah, for me, it's a review, but it's in our timeline. Yeah, dispensation, of course, where we are right now. It's sounds like, even what Elder Parmenter posted on his what do we call it, the Bible thread. With I think that was about Trump though, and it's my thought is that God is leading us rapidly now because he said and he mentioned the last events will be rapid ones, which we know that particular phrase that's used that Ellen White used over and over again. And so God's saying, get ready, preparation, make that preparation the most important thing in your life. And otherwise, he wouldn't be going in this direction with us. We need to really come up to the standard and be ready.
So
Even though I didn't listen to the whole thing, I heard half of it.
Okay.
Or 2/3 of it. So, but that was the main thing. And my thought in my mind was that God is really working with the movement to, to really rapidly take us forward into the Sunday law time.
When you say the final events will be rapid ones, I've read several articles this week and I didn't save all of them. But something referencing how, or I guess I'll put it in the form of a question. During World War II, you had a lot that led up to the persecution of the Jews, right? You have this history of Hitler, and then one might say everything changed, and it wasn't so much that everything changed, it was that it was building to that place. But then once they got to that place, everything happened really fast. Does that make sense? When it came to persecuting the Jews. Anyways, so back to the Tahiti presentations. Does anybody know why he's reviewing? I think you mentioned, Jackie, earlier that he's reviewing Testimonies Volume 9 and page 11. Does anybody have an idea why he's reviewing that?
I can take a guess. I haven't seen the presentations yet, but I can take a guess.
Okay.
It's about 9/11, correct? The title I saw from the first one is 9/11 Revisited.
Yeah, that's a different video, right? Yeah, that's a different video.
Well, that's the first one, isn't it?
Is that what it was called? I thought they were both called, maybe you're right. I thought they were both just talking about 9T. Maybe that is what it said. I don't remember. Is that what it said, Christine? Do you remember?
It's a fresh look at 9T, a fresh look at 9T, page 11, paragraph 11, in the light of the midnight cry, part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, okay. So it doesn't say 9/11, but 9T, page 11. And
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I just saw that and just when it came across, I saw 9/11.
yeah, there is one that's something similar to that title, but I couldn't remember. So you want to still give your guess?
Well, 9/11. When I saw 9/11, when I thought I saw 9/11, my thought was the judgment That's what came to my mind. The judgment, since 9/11, we've been in the period of judgment, and the Sunday law, which is the big test, the great test, is and the shut door for God's people. Right? That's just right around the corner. So that was my impression, because I saw 9/11.
And that's a fair guess considering you haven't watched it. Thank you. I appreciate that. What did, and we've been reviewing this, what did 9T teach us about 9/11?
That it's a harbinger?
Uh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's a harbinger? And what's it a harbinger for?
The close of probation. Or I think it's the close of probation, not Sunday love.
Why do you say that?
That's what I think I remember. But it could, that part's confusing to me, because at one point I thought it was Sunday law, but then it was close of probation, so it's confusing to me. Anybody else might have a better answer.
We'll still review it again then. That's kind of what I have on. Not on this board, but on the other side, so we're gonna review it again. Does anybody else, you have anything they wanna, Sarah says she thinks it's to remind us of the powers of darkness consolidating for the Sunday law. Yes, there's that as well. And who those powers of darkness are. They definitely went back over that, who those powers of darkness are. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll pull the board up and got a quick review on this first side of the board, and then we'll flip the board and go over the other side and see. You can stay there. You can stay there. We did touch on this, I don't know, one night last week. But I thought before we flip the board, we get in place who's who. And then once we have in place who's who, we'll flip the board back over. So does everybody remember this structure? We went over it. Anybody?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to walk through it? Do you remember? If you want to take one structure and give us get what you can, let's see what we can fill it in with from memory. The first theme.
You get failure, success. Is one of them the Protestants?
One of them is Protestants, yes. We're gonna put that back down here. Okay, what's another theme?
Catholicism,
Catholicism, or what else would you call it?
papacy,
The papacy. And the last one.
Apostate
the
Protestantism.
SDA church.
SDA Church. We have
Hmm.
Protestantism up here, Jackie.
Oh, we got that on the bottom.
So Adventism. So those are the themes that she gave us, Elder Tess gave us. And then she gave us the structure that it is. Does anybody remember the structures to fill those in? Thank you, Sarah. I see you got Adventism. Thank you. So what was the structures? What do we know Adventism to be? Consider it on a line. You had a line that made up this structure. What would you call Adventism? The line of what? Millerite, not quite. A little broader than that, because we're gonna take it down to and you'll get to Millerite, but the broader structure of it.
Beginning of modern Israel.
Modern Israel. Thank you, Susan. And the structure for the papacy?
Counterfeit.
The counterfeit. And Protestantism.
In God we trust.
In God we trust. Perfect. Okay. So you have Adventism, then that's modern Israel. Modern Israel would be the line from 1798 all the way to Second Advent for modern Israel. And then you have the papacy, which is the counterfeit. And we're gonna put some dates on here, hopefully by memory, or if you're cheating, that's fine too. Because I know some of you, we did this last week, so, and then Protestantism with the theme being in God we trust. And we know that what Elder Tess taught us is that there was, in each of these structures, there was a history of failure, and then finally a success. So who wants to start shouting out or in the chat, the history of modern Israel? The three histories of modern Israel. And I'll go with Sarah first because Sarah put Millerite in there. We'll put it in there. And the dates for Millerite, at least the dates that she put, if anybody remembers that.
1798 to 1844.
Correct. 1798. And she also marked it to know that it was 46 years. Do you remember the next history that's a failure?
1888 history.
Yep, you and Sarah both. And then what's this history?
The 144,000.
Okay. So the counterfeit, does anybody remember the first history?
1890, 1895,
1899.
1899? No, yeah. Well, Sarah said 1899.
I have to think real quick because I'm going from memory too. It would have to be what she just said. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think she had Pius the 12th here. And 1899 to what? 1945.
46 years also.
And again, 46 years. Don't think we can do that. I don't think we do that with this one. Okay, so somebody's gonna have to cheat or have a really good memory because I don't have this one memorized. Don't think.
1956?
I want to say that's in here. Give me just 1 second. Just to make sure we get it right, because I'm having trouble with those ones too. I got pretty far on my own. Well, your help, but I was remembering them all at least. Until I got to this one. Just to remember. Oh, I was right. Okay.
1863, because that's
Yeah.
the beginning of the war.
1863.
Or is that the middle of the war?
1863 to
1900.
1900.
But it's 1863, I can't remember now. Is that the center of the war?
It is. I was looking it up too, just to make sure. That's what I had in my mind, 1863 to 1900. And it was the Christian Amendment movement.
Mm.
It was to try to change the Constitution.
I was trying to figure out a way to remember the date. So, but 1863, that was the center of the Civil War, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the Christian Amendment movement. The next one, I believe, Bell has. the 1950s. Oh, we didn't get here yet. 1950s, which was the Judeo-Christian movement.
Nationalism.
Yeah. I think you could probably say it's nationalism, basically all the way along, nationalism, what they're aiming for. Anybody remember this history? The second failure for the counterfeit,
1989
1989.
with John Paul II.
Okay, and then here,
That was with Francis
yes, Francis and
and Benedict.
and Benedict, and Sir has 2001, yeah, 2001. So it's Benedict and Francis. And this history. Our last one.
Remember that one.
Anybody? I heard somebody, but barely. I don't know if it was thinking out loud or
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
don't remember that one.
1979 to the Sunday Law.
To Sunday Law, 1979. To Sunday Law. And what would you call it?
The New Christian Right.
New Christian Right. So you got these three structures, and each structure has three histories. Two histories of failure followed by a history of success. Is success a positive word? Always?
Depends whose side you're looking at.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but it is gonna be a positive word in a way because it's going to push the end through. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
if that, I mean, we all want to see that, but we don't want to see that,
Yeah, yeah. So let's see,
right? Only on God's side.
yeah, only on God's side. Okay, so we got these three structures that Elder Tess gave us. And I've kind of drawn up here to try to help us to figure it out on the map before we, not on the map, but on the line, before we flip the board over to go back through Islam again. So we read a question from the Ships of Alexandria Revisited, or the Ship of Alexandria, although she makes the point in that study, ships, plural. So I wrote it up there, ships as in plural. Why do we use the plural?
Because there was more than one.
There's more than one. Okay, so we want to figure out where those two are. So where the ships are, what ships they are. So she asked a question. And I had somebody read last week, and so if anybody has their Bible open and can access it quickly, Acts 28, verse 11, and want to read it. Just to check, is somebody looking or let me know, or do I need to pull it up and read it?
I'm looking.
You're okay, good.
Acts 28:11.
Yes, 28:11.
Okay, Acts 28:11. And after 3 months, we departed in a ship of Alexandria, which had wintered in the isle, whose sign was Castor and Pollux.
Okay, so it's a ship of Alexandria. So we have a ship of Alexandria, and then that's talking we know about after the Sunday Law. there's another ship of Alexandria, correct? So we have two ships, right?
Correct.
Two ships that start at Alexandria. The other ship, which we're not talking about tonight, was the ship of Adramyttium, so from someplace else. So you have these two ships of Alexandria that go from where? So where do they begin their journey?
The ship itself from Alexandria?
Yeah, the ship itself. What is its course that it takes? Where does it begin and where is it supposed to end?
Is it Alexandria to Rome?
Say that again.
Alexandria to Rome? I don't
Not
know.
quite Rome.
I'm guessing.
Puteoli,
Puteoli. Okay. But the first ship didn't make it to Puteoli, right?
right.
Okay, so the first ship didn't make it to Puteoli. And we know that the ships are considered what? The ship of, let's just look at the first ship of Alexandria. What is it considered?
We're using it as a symbol of an institution?
The institutions, right? So institutions. And so the first ship of Alexandria is, what makes up what institutions?
United States.
I think I faintly heard somebody.
One of the institutions was United States.
Okay. Any other-
SDA,
SDA, we'll put Adventism, yeah. Okay, so you have the ship of Alexandria is telling the story of two institutions. So you have one ship of Alexandria that we know shipwrecks. Where does it shipwreck? Sunday Law. So you have shipwreck at Sunday Law. And so following this, then that ship of Alexandria is the institutions of, and it'd be the United States and Adventism. Following the pattern here. Okay, so then her question, after we've read that, what arrives to take Paul? And actually, she says close of probation, but she states that the ship of Alexandria is from horizon to horizon. I think Susan shared that as well, that that the ship yeah, it's a ship of Alexandria or a ship of Alexandria. It's takes you from horizon to horizon, or from the time of the end until from 1798 until the second advent. So what arrives to take Paul to second advent, close probation? She wrote close probation. I'll say close probation, but we know it continues on. So what arrives to take Paul? According to the verse first, let's start with the verse. According to the verse that we read, what arrives to take? It's a ship of Alexandria, right?
Well, Castor and Pollux has been docked there since winter.
And so, according to the verse, what is it that takes Paul to continue on his journey? Because we know that ship began at Alexandria. Wherever it began, whenever it began at Alexandria. But it's there, and that's the ship that Paul gets on, right? And what's the name of the ship?
Castor and Pollux.
Castor and Pollux. So at this place, you have the ship of Alexandria, Castor and Pollux, that's gonna take Paul. And I'm saying she wrote to close probation, so I'm gonna only say it to that, but we know the ship goes all the way to second advent. So this ship of Castor, called Castor and Pollux, the ship of Alexandria, continues this journey. And so then again, does anybody remember the answer that Elder Tess gave us? Who is Castor and Pollux?
Counterfeit.
The counterfeit, and Sarah has it in there as well. The counterfeit. Reading from her study, what arrives to take Paul to the close of probation? And her answer was, it's the counterfeit. So you have USA and Adventism, and then you have the counterfeit. Whoops. That continues that journey. So you're going to have shipwreck for these two institutions, shipwreck for the United States, and Adventism has joined full stop with Protestantism. And they shipwreck here. What makes come to shipwreck? What shipwreck is, people are going to receive the mark of the beast, right?
Yes.
What is it about shipwreck that causes a person to receive the mark of the beast?
What is it about shipwreck?
Yeah, what is
That
it about at shipwreck that causes a person who's at shipwreck? There are people that they get the mark of the beast. Why at Sunday law do people get the mark of the beast?
Is they're praying to the wrong God?
Into another Bible. Yeah, it's a little I'm trying to think how to ask the question. Maybe I'll leave that one alone for now.
Well, Sarah said because they failed the test.
Failed the test.
What's the test?
Think external. Think external events. And think about the Garden of Eden.
Gender?
What
They
did
voted wrong.
What's that?
They voted wrong.
They voted wrong. We'll leave that one there. They voted wrong. Okay. So we see that it's the counterfeit that finishes that journey. And we'll just kind of, I'll erase this later because I need this board for something else. But we'll see that it's the counterfeit that completes this journey. So you have, I don't have it going back far enough on the board, but you have all of this being the United States and Adventism. And then the United States shipwrecks, and we know that then you've got Babylon is fallen, and then the counterfeit completes that journey. Okay, so we're gonna do a review. Anybody have any thoughts or comments or questions before I keep going? Nobody?
No, but this is good.
What's that?
This is good that we keep, the repetition is good.
It's helping me, I tell you what, because even though I've done this review with all of us a few times, I'm getting ready to do it at Lambert, and I don't know if I can remember it. So I do feel like I have an eraser that goes behind my head all the time. And I think that was a phrase that Tyler gave once a long time ago. And but I can definitely relate that I feel like that. So so there is no ocean from Puteoli to Rome. It's a land journey to, I don't know if I don't know that he would say it that way, to be honest with you, because you've got to factor in symbols, and I don't want to go into that direction, because Puteoli to Rome. So, yeah, I think I think what you're asking, when you get to Puteoli, which would be here, that, then the cargo was then taken to wherever its destination was, but it wasn't shipped into Rome. It was shipped to Puteoli and then dispersed from there. So I think that's the question you're asking. Is that right, Mary? I think, yeah, I think that's what you mean. Okay. So we're gonna start down here. Just to review again, to try to, as well, Gina said, repetition, sink this into our mind. I'm gonna state why I think, what I think, and I did watch both presentations. I watched part 2 today of Tahiti, is 9T. What I remember of 9T, that you know, when the Harbinger came out, and being able to, and we reviewed this somewhat already in the last few weeks or so, that understanding that 9T was not pointing to 9/11, but talking rather of what? And I think Christine already said it. If you remember what you said, what was 9T talking about? Sarah beat you, close probation. Okay, so it's talking about close of probation. So he's bringing that all back in to show us that, that you're going to see Islam here at the close of probation. Everybody follow that? Okay, so we're going to trace Islam. Well, we're going to trace the 7 trumpets. Real brief, real quick, since we've already gone through it. The trumpets are what? What is it? What are the trumpets? Who remembers? And shout it out if somebody writes it in the chat, so I can hear it.
Judgment,
Judgment. Trumpet is judgment. Okay, and then what's a woe?
intensity,
Intensity. Okay. And the 7 trumpets, they're a judgment. Judgment on who?
and Rome,
On Rome. The judgments on Rome. Okay. So we'll pick up and kind of go through this quickly. If you have questions or want me to pause, but then ask a question, go ahead. 31 BC is the Battle of Actium. Daniel 11:20-24 is telling us that Rome is going to rule supremely for a time. We know a time is 1 year. A day equals a year in Bible prophecy. So 360 days, 360 years. So they ruled supremely from 31 to 321 AD. So this is Rome supremely ruling. And then it starts to divide. And I'm not going to remember all the details, so shout out if I missed one that we maybe need to mention. But we have Constantine come in here. Is this where Constantine gets baptized? Somebody?
I don't remember the day the baptism, just his move from Rome to Constantinople.
Okay, from Rome to Constantinople. So the capital moves, right, to Constantinople. Okay, they then soon after here make, and I had a date on the picture, the screenshot I took of my board, and I'm not sure if I had the date right, but they soon after make a Sunday law. And I don't remember the actual date, maybe somebody remembers that, but they make a Sunday law, which then brings judgment. So what is the law? What is a law? What law, how do I ask this? they make a Sunday law. What happens with the people? When there's a law by Rome, when Rome makes such a law, what happens with the people? You have, this history in here, you have the time of Christ in here, and you've got the purity of Ephesus, right? And it starts to dwindle and such, and you get to 321, and now they make a Sunday law. What happens to you? You're a Seventh-day Adventist, and there's a literal Sunday law. You're not a Seventh-day Adventist back here. I'm just trying to give the example. And they make a Sunday law, and you're gonna go to jail or what have you if you don't keep that Sunday law. What have they done?
Church and state?
State, yeah, but I was thinking, you as an individual, what do you have to do to follow that law?
Either bow down or refuse and get persecuted.
Right, so it's a law that makes you have to go against your conscience. Is that the way that's described, I think?
Okay, yeah.
Is that right? Okay, so you have a law, and you're right, you're gonna either bow down to it or you're gonna get persecuted, so you have the choice, because their law is going to persecute or kill you. And if you do so, you're going against your conscience. So they make it to where you have to go against your conscience in order to survive and not go to jail, whatever the punishment may be. So this brings on punishment, taking us to Revelation 8, where we see the first 4 trumpets. So this Sunday law brings on judgment, and that judgment, Revelation 8, you have the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Huns, and the Visigoths during this period here. We're not going to go through the dates. We just want to look at that period briefly, and then we'll jump over to 538, where they do make another Sunday law. You have the papacy now. I do have 1798, so this would be your 1260 here. So you have the papacy now. They've got their power, seat, and great authority now. And they make a Sunday law at 538. So once again, you're in a position to where you would have to go against your conscience. So church and state, yes. Just looking at what actually brings the judgment. So then this Sunday law, following this Sunday law in 606, you begin seeing Revelation 9 open up. And this is where Muhammad goes into the cave and receives his vision, his message, that Allah is the true God, the only God, and go and spread this to the world. So you see the rise of Islam. So you had the 4 trumpets here being these, we call it the barbarian tribes. And then for this period, going all the way forward, you see the rise of Islam. And then we went through, I'm only going to mention it briefly. We went through it more in detail with board work on there. At the Battle of Nineveh, you've got in this history here, Persia. I don't know if I will draw this really poorly. You have Arabia, you have Persia, and then you have Eastern Rome, Western Rome. So we're going to put Arabia, Persia, and Rome, just to be brief. And Rome and Persia are in a battle, long history of battle, history of war, long drawn out war, is the way it's phrased too. You've got Arabia down here, where Islam had started and is growing. And they're in this battle. What does Muhammad do? Anybody remember what Muhammad does?
He makes an offer to Persian king to join and worship the one true God, Allah. And Persian king says, no, I don't need your help.
Correct. And then what happens to Persia?
Well, Persia gets defeated by Rome.
By Rome. And Rome, by this point, is exhausted. from battle as well. So Persia is out, and this opens the way for Islam to come up against its target. Because its goal is to take its true religion, which we know is a false religion, and spread it and be a scourge against an apostate church. So this one calls itself True God, following the true God. This one calls itself following the true God. So this one wants to attack Rome. That's the Battle of Nineveh, where we at right here. And that's the key that opens up the bottomless pit, opens up this Arabia, getting Persia out of the way, opens up the way for Arabia to come up. So that's the key that opens up for Islam to rise up out of the bottomless pit. So this is the fifth trumpet, ending at 1449. The woe portion, we know is only a portion of this trumpet, where you have, we went back to the trumpet is judgment, and the woe is intensity. So you have this intensity here. What are they fighting for here? What does Islam want?
I'm sorry, what does who want?
What does Islam want? What are they fighting for? Why is Islam attacking Rome? They have a prize in mind. What's that prize that they want? Nobody? Nope. It's okay, Troy. Where's Rome's capital?
By now, Constantinople.
Yeah, Mary says Constantinople. So this woe period is a period of intensity, and they are fighting to get control of Constantinople so that they can then be king, rulers, whatever you want to call it. They want to be in charge. They want to conquer and have it all. And Rome was that seat of authority, and they want that seat. They want that seat so that they can, and then there was a church here, and I don't remember if anybody remembers the name, something Haifa, something Saint, something Haifa, I can't remember. But they went in and
Haggai, Sophia Haggai.
yeah, something like that. And so they want to stake their ground and stake their territory, that now they are the true religion. So they do conquer Constantinople, I believe it's 53 here. But you see these battles here. And that second to the last leader of the Byzantine Empire, it's a Greek Orthodox. You've got Eastern Rome and Western Rome. And Eastern Rome, a lot of it is Greek Orthodox. And the leader at the time, can't remember the title, it wasn't king, emperor maybe. He makes a statement that he would rather surrender or lose to the Sultan than to concede and take help from the papacy. And so what do? They wind up losing. So he actually, I can't remember if he's the one. I think he's the one that takes over. There's two of them. There's one that dies in just a couple of years before here. I think it's 1451, and then the other one takes over. Can't remember which one it was that said that. It might have been the one that took over. But anyways, he'd rather lose to the Sultan than concede and have to be subservient to the papacy and its doctrines. So anyways, Constantinople is taken, and now Islam is got their place that they want to be. They've established themselves. In 1299, I kind of went right past that. 1299, what's marked at 1299? I think Susan knows this one. Maybe others probably do. So what do we mark at 1299? Who do we mark at 1299? Islam is spreading and then they eventually have a.
Osman one,
Yeah,
Osman the first.
yeah, so you have the Ottoman Empire, right? So you have the beginning of the Ottoman Empire. And then they eventually take Constantinople. Okay. And then you have the end there of the fifth trumpet and the second woe. So then the sixth trumpet begins. And the woe, it might be this date, and I kind of sketchy on getting down to the fine details. But the woe portion does go all the way through. We see 391 years and 5 days.
Excuse me, Elaine?
Yeah,
So the woe from 1299 to 1449, that was the first woe?
that was the first woe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, first woe. I was gonna write it, so I have it right there, first woe. The second woe, I don't know that I have the dates perfect to get the second woe, but if anybody has that, I'm happy to fill it in. We know that the prophecy is when they have a king over
It
them,
starts at 1449 to 1840.
1840, okay.
1449. Yeah.
Okay. So you have they have a caliphate, or they have a king over them now. They're established, they've got the seat of Constantinople. The fifth trumpet ends, the sixth trumpet begins, and then you go the prophecy of the day and hour, week, and 15 days. Anyway, so you get 15 days, 391 years and 15 days. And you come to 1840, what happens in 1840?
The Sultan bows down to the 4 European powers,
Which were Britain, France,
Russia, Prussia, France, Britain.
yeah. So, okay, so that takes us all the way to there, and then the seventh trumpet begins to sound in 1844, and that's where we'll pick up here. Any thoughts or comments down here? Anybody have trouble still?
Oh, I just want to add what Elena taught about the first jihad at 636. That
Oh.
will be coming under the fifth trumpet, not the first. Well, in 636, it's called the Battle of Al-Qasiyah or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
636. That's the first jihad, and then she marks the second jihad as 1453. That's when Islam took over the Byzantine Empire there. 1453.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I think you can find some of those, and you find those in history, I believe. Thank you for putting that in there.
Can you-
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Sure.
Yeah, so the other boardwork that you had for this failure success of the counterfeit,
Yeah,
if you could take a look at that, please.
sure.
So I'm looking at the at that line of the counterfeit.
Here,
Yes,
okay.
the success of it, 2001. The counterfeit. I'm not sure if I'm looking. The papacy.
Yeah,
Papacy, counterfeit, failure, success, 2001, right?
yes.
Yes, so moving back to the other board, if you could flip over. And adding on to what Gloria has commented there on 1453.
Right here, yeah.
Yes, 1453. And in addition also to what Elena was in one of her videos, the one that we just watched today, I'm sure Gloria can recall that. She lined up 1453 also with 2001, 9/11. And in that,
As a third jihad, you mean?
yes, as the third jihad, connecting also with the history of 1453 with the Sultan and that war of the how do you say it, Constantinople coming down. So there you said something about the East and the West, and the East is the Greek Orthodoxy,
Yeah, Eastern Rome was. the
Eastern
one-
Rome and Western Rome. So Eastern Rome is the Greek Orthodoxy.
I don't know about all of it, but I know that at the time, the leader there was Greek Orthodox and not Catholic. And didn't want to submit to the Pope.
Yeah, but they were part of the Byzantium, isn't it? So I'm just picking up on the, where I lost my train of thought. I'm picking up on the, where you have on the other board, the line of the success of the counterfeit. You have it there as Benedict and Francis, a success.
Yes, Elder tested.
Elder Tess had Benedict and Francis as those two popes.
Here.
Yes, as succeeding in that history.
Yeah, no, 1 second. I'll just give you where I'm working from, so. This is her. This is
Yeah,
from
I
her.
see that 2001 Benedict and Francis as a success. I'm just putting out a query there. Does it have anything to do with West and East? Those two paper Western Rome and Eastern Rome, one succeeding and one not succeeding, and the other one saying, I'd rather surrender to the Sultan than join, have papacy succeed. And we see with that choice, the Byzantine contributed to the fall of the defeat by the Sultan. Just a note to put at the back of our minds there, because we see these two popes there at 2001 as a success.
I don't know, I couldn't answer that. I think I follow what you're saying, because on the other board, in that history, it was Eastern Rome and Western Rome. And you're equating that to one of these being Eastern and one of these being Western, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because both of them are from the same, line of counterfeit.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that, I don't know. Is that something that she said,
Who?
Elena?
Oh, Elena was, what did she say? She was just lining up that 2001 and 1453. She lined it up in the video that we watched today.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But some interesting thought, that there are the two there. We do know what does Benedict represent and what does Francis surface level represent?
Conservative liberal.
Yeah, conservative liberal. So you do have that. We know that they're at odds with each other. And maybe that's what you're meaning, but I don't know. I'm hesitant to make any application to what hasn't already been done.
It's
I'll make mistakes.
it's just an observation, I know.
Yeah, so I don't know, but we do know that they are, as Jackie said, because one's conservative, one's liberal, so you do see a difference there. Okay, so thank you for that. Anybody else before we jump up here on this portion down here? Everybody okay with that? Are we getting more settled into our mind, the role of, particularly here, the role of Islam?
I need help.
Yeah, we all do.
A lot to remember.
And we do have this history here somewhere.
But you're doing a great job, Elaine. Wow.
Well, if I was doing such a great job, I hope more people would start sticking for everybody. That's what I'm trying to get. It's a stick in my own mind too. I mean,
Yeah.
even when I teach it, I still forget it, 2 months,
Oh, I
a
know.
month later or whatever. I don't remember the
Exactly.
details, but it helps me to go over it again because and then we see more things like Mary, she's, spotting out these things that you see more when you go through it. So we have in this area here around the 1700s, we have the first house of Saud rise up, and also Wahhabism, al-Wahhab, I think, he gets expelled. He's so extreme. He's extreme. He wants to go back to this purity here, wants to go back to the purity. And he gets so extreme that he gets expelled from where he's at. And King Saud says, hey, why don't you come be here with us? And they unite via Wahhab marrying Saud's daughter, sealing that which is what we're going to take up here, sealing that relationship of the state and then the religious side of things, church state, of this extreme Wahhabism. So the trying to remember what it's called, dynasty, is that what it's called? The first dynasty? I can't remember what it's called. First house of Saud, and then there was a second house, and then the third would be the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So, and I don't think I have the dates of those to do it other than when we jump up here now. So we're done down there. We see that this would mark the beginning of the House of Saud, and then that union between Wahhabism and then the House of Saud, the dynasty of Saud. Okay, so we're going to jump up here. Who remembers what happens in 1932? I actually just mentioned it, just didn't mention it with the date. Who remembers 1932? Anybody? You had the House of Saud raise up here. You had the first. I don't. The dynasty doesn't sound like that's what it said, but maybe it was what it said. But there was. Go ahead.
1932
Yeah.
in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. What about it?
Isn't that when the oil was discovered?
That would be a little bit later.
Ah,
But you have the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The kingdom of Saudi Arabia is established. And this, after they go through 1932, you've already been through World War I, World War II, and this is before, that's right, World War I, and you're not yet, this is before World War II. So in that period there. And the very end of the Ottoman Empire was at the end of, I'm going to be fuzzy on this one too. The end of World War I, but I think, I don't remember the date, I think it was 1924, was then they, then you had the nation of Turkey. So the Ottoman Empire is completely gone and it's just the nation of Turkey. I don't know if I said that all right, but as everybody said.
Wasn't it 1924 when the Ottoman dissolved?
Yeah.
think she's-
I
Ellen is at 19. Yeah.
I don't remember specifically. I remember something 1919 with the end of World War I, with that being an end, but then you don't have the establishment until 1924. So I may be fuzzy in that area, where it takes place. Because I know that they experienced as well something there in 1919 at the end of the war. So they're involved. When you look at World War I and II, because two has to do with stuff. One, definitely, you see the involvement of the Middle East. And so anyway, so then you come to 1932, which is before World War II. You have the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia established, and then they discover oil. I'm going to put the date that Elder Tess marks, 1938. And we were looking at 1937. There were surveyors. I think another study we had, a Wikipedia page. I was reviewing that tonight earlier. It said 33. But anyways, there were US surveyors that found the oil. And it's in Saudi Arabia, and it says, according to Elder Test, the largest oil field, largest source of oil that has been found in the world. And it's there in Saudi Arabia. So the United States comes into an agreement with Saudi Arabia. You've got the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia established, and now they have oil. So they're gonna go from this very poor, I think of the right word. Anyways, they catapult to great wealth quickly. And they come into an agreement with the United States. The United States helps them to refine, develop their oil, and the United States will be the army for Saudi Arabia. So now you've got we'll go right down here. You've got the Middle East, and you've got the USA, or King of the North, and then you've got Russia, and prior to that, it's the Soviet Union, but you will advance kind of forward. You've got the King of the South here, and they're striving to control who's going to have control over the Middle East. For oil, I think, for oil, but control over the Middle East.
And that is Sunni. Saudi Arabia is Sunni, right?
Yes, Saudi Arabia is Sunni, yes. Yes. Okay, so the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, then you can mark here oil. And we're gonna be able to see that very well. Mark oil there. So then we're gonna go fast forward. And there's a lot that goes on in this history. We're not looking at it right now, but you're gonna come to 1979. And does anybody remember? We've got this here, but there's something else that triggers in 1979. Does anybody remember?
Is that the Afghanistan war?
Well, yeah, I've got that up there.
Okay.
The Grand Mosque. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah,
Is that-
go ahead, Bill.
The Grand Mosque, is that when the extreme Wahhabi has become apostate?
Yeah, you fade a little bit.
Yeah, so the extreme Wahhabis take over the mosque because Saudi kingdom has become apostate. Is that it?
Yeah. They're puppets to the West, traitors to true Islam and corrupt. And so then you see the siege on the Grand Mosque. Where you get the extreme Wahhabis that then, I think there's 600 of them that go in there. And the word that Elder Tess uses in this history here, that they've lost their legitimacy, and they want to set out to reestablish their legitimacy. Okay. So then you have also at 1979, a little prior to this, I don't remember how many years before, the details on it, but Afghanistan has the best way I can remember to say it, and it might be not Afghanistan has a Soviet friendly or communist government, a communist government. So this is during the Cold War. We're still in the Cold War here, back in here, Cold War until 1989. So back in this history, the USSR is, there's a government in Afghanistan that is a communist government, and the USSR is therefore in relations with them, friends with them. And eventually you've got a revolt going on in this war. Maybe one day we can look at all the details of that. I do have the Wikipedia page or slideshow of the Wikipedia page on that. But then the Soviet Union goes and invades Afghanistan. and they become at war, and I think the communist government topples. So anyways, this war is a 10-year war that takes place. And 1979 marks what else? Another big event, 1979, Iran. What happens in Iran?
Revolution.
The Iranian Revolution. So you've got the Iranian Revolution. Elder Tess points out Pakistan, and I'm not as good with bringing Pakistan into there, other than that's where Bin Laden, and that's where we'll kind of touch on that. But the relationship between the two, but Pakistan is also a ally of the United States. Afghanistan. Prior to this history, Afghanistan sees Pakistan's getting weapons and such, being able to buy weapons from the United States, and Afghanistan wants to buy weapons, but they don't sell them to Afghanistan. They're afraid that they're going to use them on Pakistan. But when you get to 1979, okay, you've got all these multiple things going on. The Saudi Arabia is corrupt. They're being accused of being traitors of the true Islam, traitors to puppets to the West, traitors to true Islam. And they invade the Grand Mosque. So you've got that happening there. So now the Saudi Arabia wants to reestablish its legitimacy, wants to go back to that puritanical Wahhabism. The Iranian Revolution there, which overturns the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was, and the United States were in relationship at that time. So and that would be the end, that I understand it to be, the end of the Persian monarchy. In 1979, then you have the Ayatollah Khomeini take over, and now you have Sharia law, strict Sharia law in Iran, and it's Shia. Iran is Shia, strict Sharia law here. So what happens to women when strict Sharia law comes in? What happens to the women?
They can't study.
Can't study. They lose their rights.
Yeah.
Right? And terrible oppression on the women.
Elaine, did you want to add some histories like 1967, the 6-Day War,
Not yet.
1973, the Battle of Yom Kippur?
Not yet.
They're all related to that Hamas attack, the Israeli Arab wars there.
Yeah, not yet. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm just not able.
Okay, yeah. Fine.
Able to right now. Just want to trace. This is a line that Elder Tess put together here. Tracing through, in particular, looking at Saudi Arabia, then the develop into Al Qaeda, and then the development into ISIS is where I want to stick with for right now. And I'll make one.
Because you know that man Saeed Qutb, he's a premier teacher that led all those Al Qaeda, you know, the Wahhabs, and you know, so that person is quite important. Yeah.
So, and I realize that. So I just want to point out, when it comes to this, that does happen here, that I personally feel better pulling back the telescope and trying to look at all these parties, the King of the North, the King of the South, and then Islam in general. Because when you come down to here, it's not so much going to be, I want to be careful how I say this because I may say it wrong, but it's not so much about Israel. It's about looking at how Islam is behaving, how radical Islam is behaving. So while it does involve Israel, it's this progression of showing us how radical Islam behaves, and this here is demonstrating something to us that helps bring us to here. So I don't have it all figured out, but for now I just want to stick with the line that Elder Tess did, and then, you know, maybe another night we can look at some of those other dates, because I have looked at those, and I have seen it, and it's Salafi jihad as opposed to Wahhab, and we did go over that once, I don't know, a few weeks ago. but she's pointing out Salafi jihad, whereas what Elder Test brought out is when it comes to Wahhabism, no, sorry, when it comes to Sunni, that there were, I think she said that there was about 4 divisions, I don't know the right word, of Sunni, and Wahhabism was its most extreme, conservative and extreme. And so what Elena, I know, brings out is Salafi jihadism, which Salafi is another branch of the Sunni, the Sunni group, the Sunni religion, if that made sense. Okay,
I think they're coming from Wahhab. I think it's another offshoot from Wahhab, because Wahhab compromises. You know, they compromise with the West, so they're starting another movement there with the Salafi jihadists there.
okay. And I don't remember the connection with Bin Laden. So I don't remember the connection with Bin Laden with that. I'd have to review her studies again. Okay, so that's 1979. We've got the Iranian Revolution. And with the Iranian Revolution, you also have during this time period Saddam Hussein in power. Who helped put Saddam Hussein in power?
The United States.
Yeah.
Yes, USA.
Middle East, and they're trying to control, and they want to put in leaders that favor democracy. And
But you wonder if it's really favoring democracy, or if that's even kind of like, if you know what I'm saying, that's even kind of like hiding behind that ideal, but really what they want, you know, is that control for the oil. They don't care about the people.
capitalism.
Yeah, they
Capitalism.
don't care about the
I
people
think
at
you
all.
look at it later as democracy. But up here it was marked as capitalism. So we see that during the Cold War era, the United States had helped actually get Saddam Hussein in power. So this alarms, if that's the right word to use, Saddam Hussein, because Saddam Hussein is what? Saddam Hussein is Sunni. And he's also afraid because there are Shia. From what I remember, most of Iraq a lot of Iraq was Shia, but what Saddam Hussein was afraid of was this revolution spilling over into Iraq. And so then you have the Iran-Iraq war, and there are other details to the Iran-Iraq war. But anyway, so you have all this going on, the Iranian Revolution, the USSR invades Afghanistan. You've got the issues with Saudi Arabia, the Grand Mosque siege, and then you have the Iran-Iraq war. Okay, so during this period here, particularly the USSR invading Afghanistan, you now have the United States who's going to help Afghanistan. And anybody remember there were several nations, countries that helped Afghanistan. The USA was, let me get rid of this for now. The USA helped Afghanistan.
Arabia.
Anybody else remember who else?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia? Anybody else? I think everybody they were preparing in Pakistan.
Was
Yeah,
it
was it
Pakistan?
Pakistan?
I have Pakistan, yeah, on
I
my,
think India,
on that particular study.
I think India and China,
I didn't list them.
huh?
I didn't list India
Okay, I might be wrong.
or China.
I'll put a question mark. I'm pretty sure China was one of them. But Saudi Arabia and the United States, each give 8 billion to support the war, to make sure that Russia would lose that war. So they each supply, and then there's others, and it might be wrong about India, but I thought India was in there as well. And so the United States is defending Afghanistan. You've got, during this history now, who's in Pakistan that is part of this, part of the Mujahideen, you know, the Mujahideen, right? We're gonna go back to the names that Elder Tess gave us. Azam, A-Z-Z-A-M, Azam. Who I do remember that Elena connected Azam to Kut. Gloria, I'm pretty sure she did. She connected Azam back to Kut. Azam was a Palestinian professor, and he's in Pakistan, and he's the one that contacts bin Laden and invites bin Laden to come to Pakistan to join in what's going on there. So Azam and bin Laden, you have being linked here. And then in 1988, bin Laden establishes the base, and the base is the beginning of Al-Qaeda. Then you come to 1989, the end of the Cold War, the deadly wound for the USSR. Elder Tess mentioned it. I had it up here last time, I think, but Elder Tess mentions it in the study that she did, Information Streams and Wahhabism. That's what this line is basically made from. That at the 29-minute marker, almost 29, almost 30-minute marker, where she mentions that this defeat here of Russia is a factor, a contributor to the fall of the Soviet Union. If that makes sense. Yeah, Abdullah Azam. Yes, I saw that. Thank you. I think that's off a Wikipedia page as well. Okay, so you have the end of the Cold War, the Soviet Union is dismantled. We know that 1991 is the fall of it. Then comes the Gulf War. What happens at the Gulf War? Who's president of the United States during the Gulf War? Desert Storm?
Bush Jr.
What?
Oh, is it senior?
Senior, yeah, Bush Senior.
Okay.
Bush Senior, and he wants to take out Saddam Hussein. So back here you have the United States that got him into power, and now you have the United States that wants to get rid of him. Okay. And you have the Gulf War was, what was the Gulf War about? Who was involved? What happened? Before the USA went in there, what happened? What did Saddam Hussein do?
Is it Kuwait
Yes,
where they're fighting
Yes.
because of Kuwait?
yeah.
They're
Saddam,
drilling oil, slant oil.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so Saddam Hussein goes in and attacks Kuwait. You've got bin Laden now that has the base, the beginning of Al-Qaeda being established. And because Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait, Kuwait is an ally of the United States, as well as we know Saudi Arabia. And so bin Laden, coming high off this defeat here, that these, I don't know the right word to use, but the Mujahideen, this army that had come together, could actually take out a superpower, because Soviet Union was a superpower. And you got the Mujahideen, with all the help that it had, all the support that it had, the Mujahideen gets in there and fights and defeats the Soviet Union. You've got that's a contributing factor to the fall of the end of the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union. And so bin Laden is riding high on this defeat of a superpower, and goes to the Saudi Arabia government, and what does he say? What does bin Laden want to do?
He's willing to fight for them, right?
Yeah.
For the Saudi.
So he's offering to bring his Mujahideen army and fight and defend Saudi Arabia.
Are they Al Qaeda at that time, or is it Mujahideen still?
Elder Test marked it beginning in 1888 as the base, which was the beginning of Al Qaeda, but it is still the Mujahideen. That transfers into here somewhere, but it is still the Mujahideen. So Bin Laden goes to the Saudi government and says, you know, we've got these fighters and we can protect your country. And Saudi Arabia says what?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Who did they want to help them instead?
US.
The USA. So how does the puritanical Wahhabis feel about the United States coming on the soil of the Middle East?
They don't like that.
It makes them angry.
Absolutely not.
So, because remember, they're still Islam and they've got this goal to take out Rome. You got the first 4 trumpets, take out pagan Rome. I think I marked that. This would be pagan. And this would be all the way from here to down to 1798 would be papal. And then you're gonna have modern Rome.
Elaine, what year was that when Bin Laden was angry that
Bin Laden, I don't know exactly what
Saudi
year,
Arabia?
right in here, but I don't know exactly what year it was. Sorry.
I've got 96,
90
1996.
Okay, I would've thought it was a little bit earlier, but it's after that. 96 is when he declares war, and he declares war because of that. So
Yes,
yeah, so
that's right.
maybe yeah, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but this is where he declares war on the United States, and that's why he declares war on the United States, because the United States is now going to be boots on the ground. They were boots on the ground anyways in Kuwait.
How about that letter that you read that Bin Laden was angry at about Israel? What year was that?
That was 2002.
2002.
2002, yeah. So 1996 happens first, where Osama bin Laden declares war on the United States. That's where he writes the fatwa, and somebody, I think, looked it up what that was, but it's a religious law. Is that right? I think that's what we looked at. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
that's interesting too, Elaine, because they have to go to like a religious judge type of a thing that reads those or
to
approves
get the
them.
permission, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but you can see how you could, you know, how courts can be, oh, help me with the word, corrupt.
Yeah.
And so you could see how the right money can pay for what judgment they want on a fatwa too, how they want the outcome to be.
Yeah. So he declares war on the United States, and he calls for all Muslims to kill infidels. And that's written more so again in his letter in 2002. So that's 1996. Then you have the rise of the Taliban coming up, and 9/11 happens, the World Trade Centers, which was an attack on the economy. We've seen that throughout, not tonight, but through many studies that they're going back to 1798, where we have it 1798, where Napoleon goes to Egypt. He's going there because he wants to cut off the economy of Britain through by getting to India and cutting off that trade between India and Britain, which is basically to cut off the economy for Britain. And so we see that here, that they want to cut off the economy. Why do they want to cut off the economy? What do they accomplish when you cut off the economy? Maybe somebody has a better way to say that.
They made them dependent on them.
So, but definitely weakens. And going back to our fifth and sixth trumpet, our first and second woe, we look at what methodology do we use to understand this way mark here. In looking at that down there.
You mean the triple application of
Triple
prophecy?
application. Triple application. So you've got the third woe. So you've got 1 plus 2 equals 3. What was the first woe? What did the first woe accomplish?
You mean hurt,
To hurt, and then the second?
kill, hurt and kill?
So then the third would be hurt and kill. So you've got the third woe beginning here at 9/11. If you're talking about angels, what happens with the angels here? Yeah, different lines, different stories. What happens with the angels here?
Do you mean an empowerment of the angel?
Yeah, yeah.
Empowerment of the first arrival of the
Oh, you're fading. Couldn't hear you.
empowerment of the first and arrival of the second.
I know he's talking, but it was very muffled and very faint.
Empowerment of the first angel and arrival of the second.
Okay. So you have the empowerment of the first angel we saw right here, and then the arrival of the second and third. And this third, arrival of the second and third brings what? What is the message on the agricultural model? What's the message? What do we call that?
The early rain.
Yeah, the early rain. So you're gonna have the early rain. And that's gonna take us to Sunday law. And then you're gonna have latter rain here. Okay. Okay, so the other thing, and I don't know what it means, other than I found it when I was doing my studies, is this is September 11, the attack on the World Trade Center. And on October 7, the United States then invaded Afghanistan. So they invade Afghanistan and want to take out the Taliban. And I think, if I remember right, they believed that Afghanistan or the Taliban was hiding bin Laden. Is that correct? Bin Laden had gone to Afghanistan and was hiding out with the Taliban. I think that's what it was. So on October 7th, the United States invades Afghanistan. Only point that out, don't know what it means yet. Maybe there's something to it though, but that's the same date that Hamas chose to go into Israel.
Yeah, I think that's not a coincidence because they choose their dates for reasons.
Yeah,
And it is a retaliation against the United States, even though it's in Israel, because the United States is backing Israel. And they were hoping, I think, that Israel would sort of be like their eyes over there, in a sense, or if I don't know how to word it, but if Israel's over there, they're monitoring the events and keeping an eye and controlling the events, which helps the United States. But even Jared Kushner just came out, I don't know if you heard that, where he said just wipe up to Israel, just wipe out all the Palestinians because they want oceanfront property. That's how they're talking about it.
well,
But that Gaza, yeah, that's all I'm saying is you can see how infuriating that is going to make. I mean, right?
well, I'm just connected.
Islam.
I don't know if you weren't with us in the very beginning when I was asking about anybody watched the Tahiti presentations, but when you watch part 2, when it talks about the oppression of the rich oppressing the poor, it definitely fits it.
It's just disgusting.
Yeah. So, and that would be James 5. And James 5 is what Ellen White, I believe, quotes in 9T. um, about the Lord of Sabio, the, I can't remember what Sabio means. It's not the, might be God of judgment. I think that might be.
Punish,
Punish. Thank you.
I believe.
Okay, so back here, we'll continue on our line here. Also then, November 9, I don't remember the name of the battle. Elder Chess marked Islam being restrained, but this was one of the battles, I believe, in Afghanistan. So you see Islam restrained. So you have this restraint, but we're still in the third woe. We're in the early rain. And at this time, when this happened, nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw it coming. So the purpose of retracing all this is to be able to trace and understand the role of Islam better, to better understand as we progress through our line. Okay, so you come to 2003, and the United States wants to invade Iraq. Because I believe when you go back here, Bush Sr. wanted to get rid of Saddam Hussein, but failed, correct? And then Bush Jr. wants to finish that work. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, so the United States wants to take out, Saddam Hussein. What do they need to do for the United States? You've got to, you're part of the United Nations. What do you need in order to go invade Iraq?
You gotta get the people on your side.
People on your side. So they send Colin Powell, the United States sends Colin Powell. You've got the trade towers come down. They know that it's Osama bin Laden. And they want to now, I did not bring in Zarqawi yet, but Zarqawi is back in this history as well. I think he put it back to 1989, but I can't remember. But Zarqawi, who we kind of skipped over some of that history, that Zarqawi, after all of this, he goes to Iraq. And he's in this little, the way I don't remember the words that she used, but kind of obscure place in Iraq. But anyway, so Zarqawi's in Iraq, and he fought as well. Bin Laden and Zarqawi know each other, but they're not friends, so to speak. So that becomes kind of significant when we get into here. So Zarqawi is in Iraq. The United States wants to connect Osama bin Laden to Iraq. 2003, Colin Powell goes to the UN. They want to connect Osama bin Laden to Iraq. And the way that they do that is through Zarqawi, because Zarqawi is in Iraq and they say Zarqawi is connected to bin Laden. So they use Zarqawi to connect Iraq and bin Laden to get their permission. Well, now we do know that there were 3 nations. I think we asked this question before, 3 nations that did not approve. Anybody remember who they were?
Was it Turkey? I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Russia, France, and England.
Yeah.
No, not England, not England. Russia, France, and
UK,
China, I think.
Germany.
UK,
Mary says Germany. Is that correct? I think
Yeah, I think it was Germany.
Germany, France, and Russia
Russia, yes.
do not approve. Anyway, so the United States it becomes a very unpopular thing to do in the United States. Because here you have everyone, the United States united, everyone's united and everyone wants to go and take out the terrorists. But they're not so happy and they start to become divided when it comes to this unpopular war. Okay, so Zarqawi, they use Zarqawi to connect Iraq, bin Laden to Iraq. They go in to Iraq. And then eventually Zarqawi, I don't know, it comes into some sort of agreement, whatever, but they, whatever their differences are, he does get to be part of Al Qaeda. So he sets up AQI, which is Al Qaeda in Iraq. So now he's officially part of Al Qaeda. Does everybody remember the significance of being a part of Al Qaeda? What were the benefits?
Weapons,
Weapons, yeah, money,
training,
power,
training.
all of that. So now Zarqawi is set up in Iraq. It's called Al Qaeda in Iraq. This is before it becomes IS or Islamic State. So it's Al Qaeda in Iraq. And we don't have a lot of his, there's probably, I know there's a lot more that goes on in here. But then you come into 2011, this is when Arab Spring starts and the 10-year war in Syria, which you can see we have the 10-year war in the Millerite history up here. So you have the war in Syria, the civil war is going to break out in Syria. Arab Spring, there's a revolution that starts in Syria. I think I know I did a little bit of a study on that a while back. But the citizens begin to revolt. And somebody had mentioned, I put them on there, but somebody I think mentioned Gaddafi as well. So Gaddafi's killed in 2011. Okay. And so this becomes now, because you've got Al Qaeda that has gone into Syria, they take on the title Islamic State of Iraq. And then eventually they're going to become ISIS. I don't remember where I have that. Eventually, I think it's right in here. They become ISIS, which is because they conquer a good part of the territory in Syria, and they become Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS. And we mark this as our first Sunday law. We see this, so there's a caliphate. And I don't know if I have this name right. I couldn't quite read her board, but the Siege of Kaban, I'm pretty sure is what she said. Siege of Kaban, that's 2014. So I want to point out, and I think I did this before, so we'll hold here for a minute. The difference between the two that I've been looking at and trying to understand, the difference between Al Qaeda and Islamic State. Does anybody remember? We talked about it before. Does anybody remember the difference between the two?
Yeah, one wants to go global and one wants to establish a local caliphate.
Yeah, and more sectarian rather than global, and who's the enemy of the global that they want to defeat?
United States.
United States. And even on that Wikipedia page, there's a Wikipedia page you can look up for, trying to remember the title. Oh, Islamic State ideology. I think that's the one. I lost my train of my point that I was going to make that they say on there. But anyway, so the difference that I would see, and they're more regional and sectarian versus Al Qaeda or Bin Laden was global in the enemy. He was seeking to unite all Muslims to kill the infidels, and the infidels being apostate, this apostate religion, where you go back into here and you've got Uriah Smith saying that the Mohammedanism, that they were a false religion to be a scourge against an apostate church. So they're not a counterfeit, they're a false religion, and they claim to be the one true religion, and their work is to destroy what they believe to be the false religion or apostate religion of Catholicism or Rome, and then later the armies of Rome.
So would it be the best to say that all religions are false religions, with the exception that we shouldn't use the word counterfeit, is what I'm saying, because then for me, it confuses the Catholic part and role as counterfeit. So the other religions, if we say they're false religions because they're not true, they're all pagan religions, except for Adventism and this movement. But Adventism completely bypasses its chance at the Sunday law and becomes a part of the apostate understanding. They seal their doom. So would it, the best wording, would it be the best wording to say that all these other religions are false religions except the papacy is the counterfeit? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, if we stick to the spirit of prophecy, it's an apostate. Protestantism is an apostate church. So we see apostasy. Here we see a counterfeit. But what do they all have in common? I don't know if this is the right way to go about it, but just thinking through, what do they have all in common that Islam does not?
Christ?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I don't know if that's. any
Yeah, I
answer
don't
to-
know. I just was trying to clean up my way to express it so that it's clean, you know,
And
and
you're
that
going
we're all using the same
How
terminology.
about the prophecy that they want to take Damascus because isn't it about Jesus too? Their prophet.
yeah,
So they do have,
are you talking about Islam?
yeah, they're wanting to, they're angry at Russia because they have control over Syria, right? That's why the ISIS are battling
And
with
Russia's
Ru-
Eastern Orthodox, which is also part of the counterfeit. Orthodox, it's Catholic. It's a type of Catholic.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. You have.
And that's the other question is, we know that the counterfeit is Satan's religion, but it seems like Islam is also Satan's religion. And I think if they're both Satan's religion, why does Satan want to use one to wipe out the other? I know that God uses Islam, the false religion, to be a scourge, but I just struggle with that also.
There's a
How-
study that Elder Tess did, and if I can remember it, I'll send it to you, which one it was, 2020 or 2019, Germany, something, where she talks about the, like the King of the South doesn't have a boss. And I think
Yeah.
I think she talks about Islam as well, not
Yeah.
having a boss.
Oh, I didn't remember Islam, but I
I
do
don't
remember
remember for
Russia.
sure. But I think that might have to do with that answer.
I have a thought.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not sure if it goes along with the same thing you're saying, Elaine, but I remember a study where Elder Tess, I believe, mentioned that the papacy got lazy and wasn't doing their job. So then in come Islam. Like a
You're talking
score,
about- you're talking about the
the
Jesuits. You're talking about
Yes.
the Jesuits weren't doing their job.
yes.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with that to go through it, but it was in this history here, 25 years before 1798, when the Jesuits were done away with, I think. And that brings in that period of time, the great controversy. I can't remember how it describes it. But but great controversy talks about that period of time, and I can't remember how it describes it. Think about it this way with Islam being this the punisher of the armies of Rome. You've got apostate Protestantism from beginning of 1798. I don't think I have that. I don't have that whole line here.
Yeah, we know that Satan punishes his church because he follows after sort of like, if that's the right way to say it, because it's the counterfeit. We did see how when the work wasn't done properly the way it was supposed to be fulfilled, that they kind of got a punishment for it.
Well, the punishment we see is Sunday law,
Right.
Sunday law. And so therefore the punishment would be what? Sunday law,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you have to understand the right understanding of Sunday law. So you have this apostate church that radical Islam is to be the punisher of. Trying to think of an article we read a long time ago. It was an A.T. Jones article, and it was talking about the Constitution. Maybe somebody remembers that. I've kind of wanted to go back there, but I haven't done it yet. But I remember we kind of paused at a point where it was talking about a Catholic. I think it was a Protestant talking to a Catholic about I'm really sketchy on the details, but the Catholic said that they weren't worried about what was going on because they knew soon enough that basically Protestantism would return to the mother, something along those lines. And so we looked at that on Friday, homage through hatred. And what did we find that homage through hatred? What do we mean by that? Anybody remember? Let's see what time it is.
Observance.
An observance. And we don't have a lot of time to go on that point. An observance. I'll jump us through it real quick. Homage. Yes, it would be an observance that would be made that is paying homage. In other words, you're copying. That's probably the word I was looking for. You're copying Rome. So you're not friends with Rome. You're not friends with the Catholic Church. United States or Protestantism is not friends with Catholicism. But when they copy Catholicism, doing the same thing that Catholicism did, in a couple of those references, she's talking about the spirit of intolerance and persecution, but it's not that, it's in the observance or some law that they make. So so you've got Protestantism that is going to do something that the counterfeit has already done or already does. And that's where I think we need to look at, and I have been trying to find some files to go, some articles to go through this, is because what is the test?
Gender.
Say that again, gender or big broad word for it all.
Equality.
Patriarchy.
Patriarchy, equality. Somebody said equality, I think. Equality. I think
Elaine, when you say counterfeit, are you referring to the Catholic Church there?
who's the counterfeit?
Catholic Church.
Counterfeit is the Catholic.
The counterfeit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Gloria, why I wanted to find a terminology that we use so it doesn't confuse us. Because I think I hear your question, and it's been one of my questions sometimes too.
You mean versus Islam counterfeit?
Yeah,
that-
because
We're getting confused.
yeah, it wouldn't be right to call Islam a counterfeit. It's a false religion.
They don't worship, they don't believe in the Jesus as the Son of God. They don't believe in
No,
Jesus
but what's
as
it-
the Son.
but-
He's
but what's-
Jesus is a role, but not
Right,
the Savior.
right. But they're part of the Islamic religions. They came from Abraham. Sorry, I didn't mean Islamic religions. I meant Abrahamic religions, because Ishmael,
Yeah.
right?
But this would be representing Christianity for Christ.
Correct.
This represents Christianity for Christ. Islam
Correct.
is Muhammad.
Correct. But they also claim Abraham. They're
Yeah.
just like the Jews do, and just like the Christians do.
No.
And
No, go ahead.
yeah, and well, there was something else, but I forgot. But what I found interesting yesterday, a medical chair was delivered to my front door, like for a hospice person. It was a wrong delivery. And it turned out to be a place up here, but my car wouldn't go there because there are roads here that aren't like mine, nice and paved. Some are gravel, and anyway, I have a low car, right? It's a Honda. So I called my neighbor to ask her to help me take that chair to the person who needed it. And when we went, we passed a house that had a big, huge Trump flag. And right next to the big, huge Trump flag was another flag that showed it was half the United States and half the Star of David. And I just can't get over that because they're standing with Israel against Palestine, and you're seeing those sides being drawn, and the October 7th thing with how the United States, is over there involved, and how they're oppressing the Palestinians. It's terrible. But I just see that as part of the big rallying cry.
It is when it comes to apostate Protestantism and
Yes,
all,
which-
because they all followed the stream. There were two streams, right?
yes.
One was the
Yeah.
Jew stream, and what was the other stream?
Say that again.
There were two streams in 2018. We know it's more defined
Yes,
as we go through
the
it.
truth and the false.
What was the false? What methodology does the false use?
Literal.
No,
Conspiracy.
conspiracy
Oh,
theory.
yeah, conspiracy theories, but they also read literally and interpret
Yes.
literally.
Yes, but they follow conspiracy theories, and the whole Judeo-Christian thing, as you progress through, the whole thing about Israel is Israel going back to their land, that they see that as a fulfillment of prophecy. So they're looking at this as a part of fulfillment of prophecy, but they're
Yes.
not understanding it correctly.
Correct. You're right.
They're not understanding it correctly. So it's still conspiracy theories that are they're looking at this through conspiracy theories. Okay, so you have this homage. So equality being the test. What I think it'd be good for us to go forward on is to start looking at, and I've been trying to piece together some articles and find some information on the counterfeits views. Elder Tess brought out some of it, so we could go back to some of the articles she brought out. The counterfeits views on gender. We already know it's cultural feminism, right? And what is the United States doing? Because what the homage that is paid is going to be surrounding this test, right? Is that correct?
It appears to be that way.
Yeah. So I kind of started looking at articles. We certainly don't have time tonight. I actually had a little video, but the 6-minute video, but we're out of time that I was going to show on Syria, but I got sidetracked. But anybody have any comments or anything, any questions that you want to ask or add? I don't profess to have all the answers.
Just a quick one. What helped me to get my head straightened in terms of radical Islam, just like Susan want to have her head wrapped around. I do see Islam can come off as a counterfeit. I mean, you could trace the lines. However, what does prophecy want us to view Islam as? I believe prophecy wants us to look at Islam as a trumpet, as the woes. You know, that's how I view radical Islam.
I think putting Christianity, the religion of Christ, it's a false religion of Christ. The counterfeit is apostate, whatever you want. It's counterfeit. It's a counterfeit religion of Christ. And then you have Protestantism that's apostate from the truth. They're in apostasy. And then you see Adventism, because those are the three structures that we started with. Adventism, the counterfeit, the papacy, and then the Protestants. So the Protestants are in apostasy, and they're going to fall and shipwreck at the Sunday law because they make some observance. Does anybody remember what Elder Tess referred to Donald Trump as?
The face of the Sunday law.
Face of the Sunday law.
And the Heritage Foundation, is, and their project 2025, is planning to institutionalize Trumpism.
Yeah, so,
And Trump doesn't have to be there, but the face of Trump. I was trying to add more to what you just
but then
said.
going back to the Vespers classes, when she talked about Jimmy Savile, who is it that got Jimmy Savile in the position he was in?
The government, Thatcher,
Uh,
and the Royals. The
Mm,
Royals
the
promoted
people.
him. And then the people rallied behind.
Yeah,
Thatcher promoted him, and the Royals promoted him, and the people joined on board. Yeah.
so I was thinking when it comes to election day, to not vote is to what?
You voted if you don't vote. Even the primary was important. And there was a one trick question in my county. I won't go into it right now.
So
But
to
there
not vote,
There was a trick question. I had to really research it.
they're all tricky. From when I try to read up on these people, it's really hard for me to understand. I'm not good at comprehension. So, Elder Parmenter made a point in Germany when he asked for people to vote, right? Because there's people that,
And
would like
nobody
to-
wanted to vote.
And what did that mean? What did Elder Parmenter point out? What did that mean when they didn't vote?
They voted.
They voted.
Basically,
What
because a no is still, what's that word? Not
not
compliant, but
complicit.
yeah, I think that's it. That's the word I was thinking of.
Because if you look at it as in terms of Trump, if you don't vote, then that's just going to give Trump that much more edge because you could vote against him and help. But if you don't vote, so what happens if what happens when you vote for a third party?
Well, if you vote for a third party in this election, then you're basically giving it to Trump also, I think. So you almost have to vote for Biden as president.
That's what I was thinking.
That was my
Can I
decision.
ask a question? I know
Yeah.
we are running out of time, but there's something that is bothering my mind. When we're looking at the boardwalk that you have over there, I can't help but to think about what is not in it, and that is the failure of the left, which we know has contributed to all of this. As we know, the right and when it comes to equality, gender rights, and all of that, we know where they stand, and we also know where Islam stands on that. I can't think of any other violator of gender rights, the radical Islam. Basically, women have no rights over there. But when we're thinking about the failure of the left, I think that is a more what's the word, more serious area to look at, because that's where the deception and all of that lies in. And especially even when you're thinking about voting for the left, you know, and we know they have failed, it is that much trickier issue than we think.
Those are fine details to be looked at. Going back to Vespers, definitely fine details. But isn't it the far left that helps? The far left that merges with the far right. We know that on different principles, but they come together, right? So the far left actually plays a role in helping the far right.
Greystone and Mega.
Their failure, and their failure is not just in one dispensation, it's all the way from the beginning of our reform line, if you have to think about it.
Yeah, it would be a whole different line than what that's not the purpose anyway of this line, but yes, you're right. It would be a whole different line to look at. At least that's the way I understand it. And it would be in the fine details of looking at you'd have to be tracing the history of the right and the left along the line. but this particular line is just tracing the history and looking at Islam. And as we, and what we started out with is looking at Castor and Pollux and how we can see. You've got, it was on the other board, but the ships of Alexandria, there's 2 ships. Elder Tess makes that point, and then emphasizes it. There's 2 ships. So one starts at 1798, that is made up of the institutions, and that's the United States and Adventism. And that shipwrecks at Sunday Law, and that message is over equality. And then another ship from Alexandria is what continues Paul on that journey. And if we look at Paul, we're missing the point of the ships. So the story of Acts 27 and 28, it's not about Paul, it's about the ships, the institutions. And so when you look at the United States, well, like we had on the other board, you look at the United States and Adventism being the institutions up until the Sunday Law, then you have an institution that takes over.
I agree with you on that, except Paul gives a message. If Paul gives a message, then Paul has to be a part of it somehow. And I was thinking how Paul means little, and won't we be the 144,000 be a little flock?
Yeah,
And we talk about Julius the Augustus band. And
Yeah.
Julius the Augustus band is an imperial, he's like a captain of the imperial army. If you think about it, aren't the 144,000 God's army? And so I began to think that is also a representation in that particular storyline that is showing because you're either with Paul and God, what we would, and that would be only our message. That could only be our message, because no other religion is correct by Sunday Law. So it could only be the 144,000. And so I was thinking Paul is a representative of the little flock, and Julius and the Augustus band, those are symbols of the 144,000 with Christ and the Holy Spirit. That
if you do focus on Paul, where does Paul end up?
Yeah, but she ends it at Puteoli on that
Well, what
line.
happens to Paul?
But on that one line,
Get
we
killed
don't know.
in Rome. He dies in Rome.
Paul gets killed, right?
Yes,
So
but
if you
not
look
on
at
that
Paul-
line.
So if you
Yes,
look at, if you
but
separate out, and
Elaine,
if you
wait.
make it about Paul,
But Elaine, not on that line, he doesn't. She ends that line at the second coming,
but we have to
meaning she
understand
takes
that.
away the other from
Yeah,
that
we have to
line.
understand the parable of Paul and what happens there. And I don't claim to understand that fully yet. But if we do look at Paul and separate from the ships, then what we're going to see is that Paul gets killed. And then
Yes,
what are
I
we going
get
to
that.
say? We're going to say
But not on that line. Not on that line. Because she ends it at Puteoli, the second coming.
Right.
Paul is a messenger to both the Jews and the Gentiles. That's what God raised him up for. He had a special conversion experience, different than the others.
Yeah.
And
I understand what you're saying, but if you can go back to I don't remember the date, December maybe 2022, but it's a one that Elder Parmenter did, Acts 27, life or death message. That's a good one to review for that, where he kind of covers some of that, and it might be helpful.
it's also different than the last line she presented. That last line is unique to me. And I just see it different. But I'm remaining open, but this is what I see. I can't help
different than you see it different than Elder Tess? Is that
No,
what you mean?
that one last line she presented, revisited, is different than the one Elder Parmenter is talking about also, that you're mentioning.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the know-all, that's for sure.
I'm not a know-all. I'm just sharing with you.
Yeah, I know, I mean, you're stumping me, so I
Date.
don't know. I'm just going by what I have learned and that's all I can say. I don't like to go beyond what I do understand. And there is plenty that I still don't understand, so, so I don't know. I just know that we're told to look at the ships because the story of Acts 27 is about the ships, not about the people and the institutions that they represent. So that's as far as I know. So, but it's a good place to go review. It is. I've been reviewing that one as well as these ones as well. So anyways, we're way over. I apologize. So Susan, I don't know. I'm not disagreeing or agreeing. I just saying that that's as far as I understand. And
I just wanted to make sure you understood my reasoning because on that specific line, because I agree with you.
on the line that's behind us right now.
No, when we're talking about when it ends at Puteoli, as opposed to when he gets taken to Rome or whatever. The way she ends it at Puteoli and calls that the second
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
That's all I'm just trying to say.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. And I just didn't admit my limits. Because I definitely have them. But that's what we're all here for, is to try to increase our understanding and increase our wisdom as well, so. But anyway, Susan, would you like to close us in prayer?
Sure, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dear Lord God in heaven, thank you so much, Lord, for bearing with each one of us, Lord. And as we each have our different idiosyncrasies, Lord, all of us are human, all of us err in ways, but we're trying really hard, Lord, to understand all these various parts and pieces, and we're trying very hard to thread it all together and make it cohesive so that we can explain it and so that we can also, so that we can understand it in order that we explain it properly. None of us wants to teach error, Lord. So please continue to work with us. And thank you so much, Lord, for the study that Elaine presented this evening. There's so much to remember. I, for one, am very weak in certain areas, remembering years and certain details, Lord. I'm sure others have the same feeling. So we ask that you continue to strengthen us and continue to illuminate our minds, Lord, and continue to keep us tight-knitted. Please don't let any misunderstanding split us in any way. Help us to try to reason through so we can continue to be united, Lord. I don't want to lose anybody whom I've come to love, Lord, in this movement. Please, Lord. And just thank you so much for all that you're doing for all of us. And just give us a good rest of our evening. And bless everyone tomorrow as they go through their day. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Susan.
Thank
Amen.
you.
So thank you, everybody, for
Amen. Thank you, Elaine.
Friday.
It was a blessing tonight. Thank
for
you.
the participation. It's always helpful.
Yes.
So Friday, I think this schedule's going out. This is Fiji, or is that next week?
Yeah, it is next weekend.
Yeah, not this weekend, right?
Isn't it
Yeah.
Australia? Isn't
Not
it
this weekend.
It's the
weekend?
very last weekend of
Yeah,
the month.
very last weekend, that's right.
Don't we have a camp meeting this weekend?
No, next
No.
weekend.
Oh, I'm behind. I'm off.
Next
Thank you for
weekend. I'm
correcting
off
me.
and I'm trying to, so Phil, oh, he's not there because neither is Christine, because I think it's Phil. I have to double check the schedule. Pretty sure it's Phil. Anyways, I know it's covered, so, but, so.
It is Phil. I just looked at the schedule. It
Yeah,
is
it's
Phil.
Phil and somebody else. Trying to remember who else. is it.
Robert.
Not
Is it
Robert. Robert had to cancel. Maybe it was the one that I have somebody. Oh, it's Christine. Christine is doing one of the 10 risks, I believe, and then fell. So, and then Vespers, we might watch, maybe we'll watch, I don't know if we have anything on there figured out, but maybe we'll watch El Departamentos Tahiti, #1, maybe. We'll see.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Okay.
However it works out.
Okay. Well, God bless everybody.
God bless you too,
Good night.
everyone. See you soon.
See you Friday.
Good night.
Night.